So back in 2008, I met someone that was going to impact the way I view engineering. It happened to be my car mechanic. Every time that I would take my car to his shop, he would say, don't simply fix the problem, look for what caused the problem. And that was his mantra. He will always say, don't fix the problem, find the root of the problem. And years later, as I started developing my game engine, I finally understood what he really meant with that. What he meant to say was to always view a problem holistically, that no problem exists in a vacuum, that in a complex system, everything, absolutely everything is connected, either directly or indirectly. And having this mindset has truly helped me. It has helped me step outside the box and look at my engine from a different perspective. So in this video, I want to share with you some tips that have helped me step outside the box and approach game engine development from a different perspective. So let's begin. My name is Jero Serrano, and one of the things that I'm very passionate about is 3D game engine development. I actually developed a 3D game engine. It took me 5 years of hard work, so believe me, I know how hard it is to develop a game engine. And I'm here to share with you everything I know about game engine development. All right. The first tip that I want to share with you is to always be mindful of your engine's API. How people interact with your engine's API may actually break your engine. So your job is to foresee the various ways that people will use your API and make it very hard for them to use it incorrectly. Let me give you a very simple example. Okay, the function that you see right now on your screen is called setDate, and there's no problems with it, but that function is actually asking for disaster. The function simply asks for the date parameters, the month, the day, and the year. But there's a problem. Uh, it is very easy for the user to accidentally swap the order of the parameters. For example, instead of him providing the parameters in the month, year, month, day format, he may accidentally provide it in a day, month format, as you see here on the screen. And there is no safety guard to prevent a user from making such an innocent mistake, right? And there is a better way to write this function, a better way to actually prevent this accident from ever occurring. And how you do it is to create a new data type, such as what you see here, and use that data type in your function parameter. It doesn't change anything in the function, but it forces the user to explicitly write out the data correctly, thus preventing the user from using your API incorrectly. And that's the whole goal of it. Keep this in mind. A good API design is akin to a good GUI design. It should be simple enough for anyone to start using it and hard enough for anyone to use it incorrectly. So here are some tips that I want you to keep in mind whenever you are developing your API. Keep your API simple so that anyone can use it. Number two, keep your API short so that anyone can remember it. And number three, keep your API clean so that anyone can understand it without reading the full documentation. People do not read documentations. Believe me, I don't do it. I only read it when I'm facing a problem. So you need to be honest with yourself and understand how people work. People tend they may skim over that documentation, but the only time they're going to really go and focus and read the documentation is when they are having a problem. So you want to prevent any issues from occurring when they use your API. And the next thing that I want you to be mindful of is be mindful of what you implement in your game engine. When you are developing your game engine, think of the Lego building blocks that you used to play when you were a kid. And the whole point is this: you want to provide the minimum number of building blocks in such a way that enables the maximum creative freedom. It's about providing building blocks that enables creativity, and too many building blocks usually have a negative effect. So you want to be very, very selective of what you implement in your game engine. So how do you determine that, right? How do you decide what to implement and what not to implement? Well, this is actually quite very simple. If a feature is too dependent on the kind of gameplay, then do not make it part of your game engine. And if a feature is not dependent on the gameplay, then consider it implementing it. Let me give you a very good example. Collision detection system. A collision detection is not dependent on the gameplay. No matter what type of game, you will need to detect collisions. So in this instance, you should implement a collision detection system. However, an artificial intelligence sense management system may depend too much on the gameplay. So in this instance, you should not implement it. The game developer can work on that if his or her game requires it, but you don't have to provide that to him. However, what you do need to provide are the building blocks to make the sense management system easier to implement. For example, once a character senses another object nearby, then most likely that character will want to navigate towards the object. So in this instance, you providing the A star pathfinding algorithm makes sense. The game developer can actually use the algorithm as a building block to help the character navigate towards the sense, towards the other character. So keep this in mind. Provide the building blocks, not the building. All right, and this will make your game engine flexible. Again, provide the building blocks. Provide in the example that I gave you with the sense management system, providing the A star pathfinder algorithm is going to help. Providing the steering behavior for the AI will help, but you don't want to provide the sense management. You can leave that for the developer to implement if he wants to. All right, so provide the building blocks, not the building. And the final tip that I want to share with you is to be mindful of how much you implement. A while back, I saw this illustration that you see on your screen, and it got me thinking. And the illustration went as follows. Imagine a system with 4 individual components, and each of these components have an efficiency of 90%. It turns out that the efficiency of the whole system is not 90%. It's actually less than that. It turns out to be 65%. And the whole message of this illustration was that as we introduce more components into a system, the efficiency of the system will suffer. Now, I think we can all agree with that. Um, and the job of the engineer is to make sure the efficiency of the system stays within an acceptable level. But to do that, the engineer may have to steal resources from other components. And those resources could either be computational time or memory space, etc. So, why am I saying all this? Well, because implementing a new feature always comes with a cost. A component in your engine will eventually have to pay the bill, right? Either you end up with not enough bandwidth to perform all required operations, or you will end up using too much memory space. So I have learned that providing every possible feature does not make your game engine better. Sometimes it does the opposite. So here is something for you to keep in mind. Um, Implement enough so that your game engine is usable, but not too much that it becomes useless. Um, Remember this, because as you keep adding more stuff onto your game engine, you will notice how some other components will start being affected. Like my mechanics said, right? Everything is connected. And I have seen how um, component A may not affect component B, but does affect component C. Indirectly, it is affecting the efficiency. So always keep in mind that when you add more stuff onto a system, the efficiency will suffer, and someone will have to end up paying the bill. So implement enough so that your game engine is usable, but not too much that it becomes useless. And this is all what I have for you today. I hope these tips are useful. I hope you can apply them when you develop your game engine. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.